process when it comes to corporate lending in this particular example really looks at how we can take work internally, how we can take work on board, and how we can delegate that to the right people to be able to perform the right activities. What we're going to be looking at here is how do we offload that from our human workforce and get our digital workforce to really engage in those activities and streamline and automate a lot of the stuff that our human workers would previously be had of performed. So whilst we would have delegated to our relationship managers previously, in this case, we're going to be delegating directly to our Blue Prism digital worker, and they're going to be performing a number of activities such as data gathering, eligibility checking, due diligence, etc. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So I'm just going to share my mobile phone up onto the screen here, and we'll see a application where a client could be applying for a particular product from the bank. So in this case, we want to take a small business loan, and we want to select that for our organization. So it's going to be a limited company. We're actually going to go and perform a lookup on that specific company's information. So here we've gone directly back to the source, which is Companies House in the UK, to extract all of that information from this particular company. And we're going to allow the user to simply select the viable option. So they don't have to rekey any of this information. We'll then go ahead and fill out all the applicant specific details, and we'll move on to the loan information. So over here, we can select how much it is we want to borrow. Let's say it's £8,700. Let's say we want to use that for daily cash flow purposes. And we can also select the duration of the actual loan. So we don't have any other active business loans or overdrafts. So we're just very simply going to go ahead, click apply, and we're going to send that off to create a record in our system of choice, whether it's your legacy platform that you use within your organization, or whether it's a more modern system like Salesforce or Dynamics 365. We can go ahead and just integrate seamlessly with any of those platforms and look to start automating those processes. Great, so that's done. I'm going to close my phone and I'm going to open up my digital worker here and I'm going to get them started. So our digital worker is automatically going to pick up a bunch of work that's been delegated to them, and they're going to find all the tasks that are relevant that they need to undertake. And in a perfect world, in parallel, they would go ahead and automate a number of these steps throughout the process. In this example, we'll run through them sequentially. So the first thing they're going to do is a credit check. So they'll log into a third-party application, automatically feed in the information relevant to the credit check, and that came back with a good score of 735, so we can move on to the next step. So here we'll go into checking eligibility. And in this example, we go into a AI decision engine, which is going to take us through a series of questions to understand the specific details of this applicant, the type of product, the jurisdiction, the credit score that they've been allocated, when the company's been incorporated, all the necessary questions that our subject matter experts would typically ask to drive their decision-making process. And it will come out with a result of whether we are eligible or not for this particular product. So in this case, we'll go and select a loan, and we'll get a response back from our loan. So we'll see an accept of 83% here, which is a great score. So we'll move on to the next step. In this stage, what our digital worker is doing is some of the corporate due diligence on the organization behind the application. So they'll go in, do a search for Brompton bicycles, capture all of the specific information here necessary for the subject matter experts, and they'll also download each one of those documents and reports and give that information to the relationship managers so they can really spend their time focusing on how do they deliver a better service to their customers as opposed to the administrative activities. And in this case, we can straight through process this. So we're just going to go and download the latest template, inject the necessary data. And actually what we're going to do is send that off to DocuSign to inject a digital signature into it as well. So we can email that back to our client. So we're moving from what was a very slow traditional process, which would have to be handed off across multiple teams or people within an organization, to really streamlining and fully digitizing that with the power of our digital workforce. So that's it. Let me pause that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into my inbox. And what we'll see here is I've got a new contract that's just come in from DocuSign. So let me go ahead and open that up. And in my contract here, I will see all the information that the digital worker provided. So the effective dates, the company, the amounts. And we'll also see some interesting stuff around things like interest rates, which the digital worker has actually gone and calculated in the background to be able to inject that information in. And if we go down to the bottom, we can very quickly just decide to sign our life away here and go and submit our contract. So we've taken the process from what was traditionally a highly manual, quite disjointed and slow process within certainly a lot more of the traditional institutes and the banks into something that's fully digitized end-to-end, leveraging a combination of our modern and legacy technology, and also automating a number of those manual processes and steps in between. Great, so that's given us a kind of idea of what we can do, but let's have a look in the background in terms of, how do we actually work alongside our human workforce, and how do we create that collaboration between the two platforms? So if I jump into my dashboard over here, what we'll see is that I've got access to a number of different processes. It could be enhanced due diligence. We've got the loan onboarding one, which is what we're looking at today, or even know your customer type of examples. In this case, we'll jump into the loan onboarding, and we'll very quickly be able to see a snapshot of how we've been progressing in terms of all the processes that have been automated straight through. So, in other words, ones that have not required any human intervention, and also, what percentage of those have required human intervention, and how could we then drill into that information to further enhance the process. We can also see how that's progressing in terms of the life cycle and where we are with our workloads on that. And we can also get into any of the open applications at the moment. In our example, we're going to jump over to complete, and we'll jump into our Brompton Bicycle loan agreement here. Now, very interestingly, what we'll see is we've got all of the necessary metadata for our relationship managers to really help them make better decisions faster. So we've got the organization-specific information, we've got the loan-specific details, and we've even got the primary contact people, so we know exactly who we need to be talking to. And if we scroll further down, what we'll see is the information we gathered, or the digital worker gathered from Nexus Diligence, they've actually automatically pulled that information over, and our relationship managers now have the ability to really analyze this data and make decisions in terms of what their next best action may be. So for example, negative news probably needs a bit of analysis. Politically exposed persons may certainly need a bit of further investigation. If we keep going down, what we also see is all the tasks that have been completed by our digital workers. So we've got the validation of eligibility, we've got the credit check, the background check, and each one of these has the necessary context and traceability around it to be able to fully understand exactly what our digital worker has done for us, and how to retrace their steps, if you like, if any questions come up. So full visibility on all of their actions. And if we drill into one of those examples to have a look, we can see we tend to collaborate with our digital workers in the same way we do with our human workforce. So we've got a comment section available here on the task, and we can see that our digital worker has been communicating back with us exactly what's happening. So they've logged into Rainbow's decision engine, they've got a score of 83%, and if we want to drill into any of that information, we can dive straight back into that knowledge map. So let me open that up in the browser here, and this really gives us the full traceability and visibility of every decision that's being made, which are the important factors that drove to that ultimate decision, and how were they weighed against each other in order to get to that 83% outcome there. So again, just really bringing that kind of intelligence level to our digital workers, but also maintaining the integrity and the traceability back over to our human workforce when they need to be. Great, and then the final thing to look at is, we've got a bunch of other information available here, but the document section is probably the most important. So what we'll see here is that automatically we've got a number of documents that are available to us, and these have been automatically extracted out of Nexus Diligence and uploaded into this portal by a digital worker, saving us a huge amount of time there. And you'll also notice that the signed loan agreement contract is in here, so we can have a look at all of that information. If we drill into one of these as an example, we can very quickly see any of the specifics around that and drill into some of the findings. So this is the negative news one where we had one hit on that. At this point, we can get a full overview of that and really empower our knowledge workers, our subject matter experts, to be incredibly more performant, increase that accuracy of work and the ultimate quality of the outputs. And really, have our workers focus on what's important, spending time with customers, delivering a quality service, not doing a lot of this administrative repetitive capabilities. So appreciate that was a pretty quick run through there, and we covered quite a lot. So that's really what I wanted to cover off, and hopefully that's painted a really good picture for you guys. Open to any questions. I'm not sure in terms of how much time we've got left, but more than happy to take any questions if anybody has.